Hello, YouTube people. Today, me and Max are here to do a brief reaction video regarding the ban list. Today, of course, we got a big announcement we are waiting for months now, and Nadu finally got banned. But also with Nadu, we got Grief gone. So, did you expect this ban?
Yeah, well, Nadu, I think we all knew was coming. I think there was a lot of questions about grief and kind of a lot of people who were not happy with grief, just because it's not fun to have your hand thought seized twice before you even get to play a single turn of magic. But I also was thinking that some people were suspicious of the One Ring and how it can just take over a game by itself. So I think a lot of people thought that the One Ring might be banned. So I think that kind of surprising to see Grief go, but not the One Ring. Um, but it's gonna definitely shake up Modern, and I think that it's a fair choice. The One Ring costs 4 mana, and that's a lot for Modern. So definitely, you know, you expect a 4 mana card in Modern to be a very impactful card.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And also, like, talking about Ring, I think now that the maybe best deck in the format that we had for a while is gone, we will see more Ring decks and more decks that previously were a bit underplayed because of Nadu and in general because the power level of the format was so high and impactful. And thinking about Titan. But I'm also thinking about maybe some control decks.
Yeah.
And so, what do you think about what are the decks that you think that will make a comeback in modern right now?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the decks that were more linear struggled against Nadu, definitely, because Nadu was just a super fast and consistent like turn 3, turn 4 combo deck. So a lot of the decks like Amulet would just end up being a turn too slow. So I could definitely see people, trying to play Amulet Titan again. I could see people trying to play the red green Eldrazi through the Breach deck. I think that deck, Kozilek's Command, was just a really strong card that was printed. It's a great home for the One Ring. You get to play Ancient Stirrings, just a lot of really strong cards from Modern's history, and have a really strong combo plan of Through the Breach and Emrakul. So I think that deck could come back, or have a stronger presence in the metagame. But then I also think just the Eldrazi deck in general was kind of on the fringe of the meta. And that's just like the new Ugin's Labyrinth, Eldrazi Temple, Tron deck. And I could see a version of that being popular. I could see decks like Creativity being popular, like some type of combo control deck. But I think also some of the big players in Modern, like Boros Energy, or maybe Necro, like they all still have chances to be very popular. Boros Energy certainly. Necro, it will see if it can play without grief. Um, but lots of competitors, and then of course I think Blue Black Frog will still be a super strong deck, and some opportunity for continued brewing around Grixis decks, incorporating strong cards like Expressive Iteration, DRC, and Unholy Heat.
Yeah, I think actually like this ban was really good for us because I think um well, of course, like getting the boogeyman of the format gone is always good when you're playing an interactive deck like Murktide shells or Tempo shells in general. But I also think that removing Grief for the format will probably help us as like Grief was like I think our deck wasn't really great versus turn one Grief decks. And that card was problematic in Necrop, was problematic in Goryo, for example. While now we can just play a more counterspell heavy game and win just a fair game, where we just do one for one while playing threats. And regarding the format, I'm always happy when the meta shakes because I think when people are still tuning the deck or understanding what to play, you mentioned creativity, you mentioned Titan. and some other decks. I think they are always usually decent matchup or good matchups versus like our decks have good matchups because I
Mm-hmm.
think playing counterspell, removal, efficient threat, it's always a very good mixture of spells, especially like. You are showing Blue Red Wizard, so this list, for example, plays Blood Moon in the sideboard, but also plays a huge suite of interaction to fight versus Eldrazi. But also like you can show the blue-black version, the blue-black frog. That's a list I am suggesting to other people. And like the blue-black frog version, for example, plays Harbinger of the Seas in the Man. I think the card is just fantastic in this meta because people don't expect it coming, and it really preys on decks like Amulet, etc. So I'm really happy to play the counter spells decks at the moment. Of course, like the only problematic thing is to figure out what cards are the best to beat Boros, what combination of colors is the best, because I expect Boros to be probably the deck to beat now.
Yeah,
But I
totally.
don't think it's a big problem. I think like red offers Pyroclasm, while black offers, of course, the Toxic Deluge, but now we started to play Glistening Deluge, and I'm especially happy because since we are playing Freeze Prisoner in the main already, usually we can also upgrade our sideboard with the now free copy of Star Scolding, probably. So we have a six answer to a turn to Raptor or a turn to Ajani while we are on the play. So
Yeah,
that
that's
that's very
huge.
very
That's
huge.
very, very huge. Those two drops were a big problem out of the energy deck, and whenever you had Spell Snare, you were able to often kind of get ahead because you just have to fend off their early aggression with the two drop, and then you can often stabilize and kind of pull ahead later. So having that ability on the draw to stop their two drop profitably with a counter is huge because the removal spells that's kind of the advantage of the energy deck is that removal spells don't always work very favorably one for one. They just have a lot of two for ones in their deck, but the counters are always going to trade one for one on the stack. So that's a big upgrade for your potential sideboard plan.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking that like our decks, of course, when the War Ring is on the battlefield, it resolves and it draw a bunch of cards. Of course, the card is not great, but I'm always packing a lot of faith for the card. Like tonight, I was playing the Grixis version you are showing here on screen, and for example, I'm playing um, Cast into the Fire alongside four copy of Consign to Memory that you are also
Mm-hmm.
playing. So I think like those cards really helps you fight against the ring. And also, of course, we are playing Force of Negation on top of that, meaning
Yeah.
that trying to win the game resolving a four drop sorcery speed is not always so easy.
Yeah,
And
I think that two things to call out from the bans is well, grief, like you mentioned, grief. The matchups with grief could vary for us. Sometimes I think that they were favorable, like red green, or sorry, red black scam was. But sometimes the grief decks were more tricky. Living End had historically been tricky if you didn't target it. The Necro deck I think we were okay against, but it's very scary when they can just grief you and then resolve a necro dominance if you don't have multiple counters. So but also grief was really good against a lot of the decks that tried to kind of go all in on one card, for example. Like Amulet and those decks, similar to being soft to Grief, they tend to be soft to counterspell. So the fact that Grief is gone gives those decks permission to be played more, which is good for Murktide. The Wondering is another good example of that, like similar type of deck with big mana, slam the Wondering, and our Force of Negations and Consign to Memories are gonna make it so all of these Wondering decks that people are playing are just they're never gonna be able to resolve the Wondering,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
that's huge for us because it's going to be one of the biggest plans, and we're just very well set up against that, and Force of Negation plus Psychic Frog. We've talked about how good of a pairing these cards are, and Force of Negation plus Murktide Regent already. But the fact that the One Ring stands to become maybe the most played card, instead of Nadu, which was a creature that you couldn't Force of Negation, is going to really shift the meta in our favor, in my opinion.
Yeah,
What you
I
got?
also wanted to advise a small thing that in Magic discussion, a lot of things tends to be like, what if they play this and what if they play this? So I think that's a bad topic. I don't think you can say that like Murktide has a bad matchup versus the One Ring, but you have to analyze what is the plan of the deck that lets to play the One Ring, and then you adapt playing a type of game. So I think, for example, versus Jeskai Control, you tend to play a counter spell heavy game, while
Yep.
versus Eldrazi, you tend to slam creatures on the battlefield fast because they don't play removal,
Yep.
and then you play a more tempo game. So
Yeah.
I just want to say to people listening to this that just don't panic if you think the Warring is a very strong card, or if you think that Boros is very strong deck, because I think the strength of Murktide decks, of tempo decks in general, is that you can play a different strategy and you can sequence differently depending on the deck you face. So learning how to play a matchup specifically will help you a lot into playing that. So don't have any prejudice regarding that. Just try to sequence differently, sequence better, and understanding better the matchup.
I totally agree. I think that Murktide is going to be in a great position, and there's going to be quite a few different lists for you to try. So we hope to see you guys in the Merc Guides Discord, and yeah, let's get ready to crush Modern together. All right, thank you guys.
Have a nice one. Bye.